behind in 1952, less than rather than 30% of range passing in Britain was by vehicle, van, or cab. 42% was by bus or trainer, and 17% by boat train. As human beings got richer and cars got expensive, the image modified quickly. By 1970, 3/4 of all occupant many kilometers were by individual car. The ratio achieved 85% in the deceased 1980s and has remaining approximately continuous with later, as has the full range managed every year. Social politics emboldened drive in the position wartime. On to Richard Blyth of the King City Planner Institution. New suburban area were more than distribution of the at first highway, Lancashire's 8-mile Preston circumvent, outdoor in 1958 and now forms portion of the M6. Meantime less than cash was nested in social transportation, particularly buses, says Blyth. Journey by bus and trainer has been in length term decrease, account for fair 4% of full range passing in 2016, a 10 of the drawing of the previous 1950s. Off of the roads, railing bring down to a low of 5% in the medium 1990s but has constantly enlarged, keys 10% currently. The ordinary sum of period every man spends traveling every day is on one time, and amazingly that has been quite continuous with the 1960s. But ordinary speeds include enlarged, particularly for railing, so human beings can go future in the identical sum of period. The tool human beings are commuting more distances, particularly in the overcrowded southward east of England. In spite human beings drive far more than rather than in the position wartime, deaths on the way include rejected with the medium 1960s. Loss of life rose dramatically as more than human beings got cars in the 1950s and 60s, later bring down sharply. The position war spike was 1966, while 7,985 human beings dead on the roads in England, Scotland, and Wales. Of how year all new cars had to be adjusted in seat belts, although they just became mandatory in the frontline chair in 1983 and the behind in 1991. These legislative changes were followed by difficult affecting advertisement campaigns. By 2010 the yearly drawing had fallen to on 1,800 and has remaining approximately down therewith, though down there has been a little growth in several latter year. The sum of traffic has grown up extremely with the warfare, so way security has superior though more than sharply rather than the full loss of life drawing suggests. The tendency is copied through the planet. Professor Benjamin Heidecker of College School London says the improved were not unavoidable and include been driven on by the 3 E's of way security politics, mechanical engineering, coercion and formation. Among 2006 and 2010 down there was a especially abrupt fall in deaths, 40%. House partially since traffic bring down a bit for the finance meltdown, as so as way mechanical engineering improved and car security. Down there's as well been a fast drop in the quantity of human beings annihilated in SIP driving incidents, of 490 in 2006 to 220 in 2010. Down there are a lot of some probable factors, says Heidecker. One creature how youthful human beings, who are more than potential to collapse, more communicate by the web and clever phones, manufacturing drive less than significant. Rate cameras at first begun creature utilized in 1992 but became common through the nation Indiana the previous 2000s. Onto the King community for the preventive of accidents. They are a really efficient way of persuading drivers not to rate, and thereby reduction the quantity of human beings annihilated and severely injured. In 2016, on a block of all deadly accidents on the roads were associated to rate. It was the tertiary largest overall cause for deadly accidents, following drivers lack to see correctly or looser monitoring of their vehicles. Some overall factors helping to accidents involve, on ordinary the quantity of crashes resultant in die and severe trauma was cut by more than rather than a tertiary in sites wherever rate cameras were established. Largest human beings expend far more than on drive rather than they do on social transportation. But the sum we expend on social transportation has been growing far more than rapidly in latter year. Time conducting on automobile has enlarged by 9% above the history 10 years, conducting on social transportation has enlarged by 74%. How's partially since we're traveling far future by railing rather than a 10 years back. He's as well since fares are growing quickly. If you see at which's happened to automobile expenses above the history too many decades compared in the price of social transportation, drive expenses include enlarged at a slower bet. How's with a retailer cost code, IRC, action of bloating to see at how the expenses of drive and of social transportation include enlarged family member to their 1997 levels. The ordinary domestic yet spends far more than on drive rather than social transportation, although, pound per 1 week recent year. Fare by part, the cash went to procurement vehicles, time a lightly less piece went on gas. Largest of the left cash money went on spare, auxiliary equipment, repairs and maintenance. The ordinary domestic consumable pound a 1 week on social transportation recent year, house railing, subterranean, coach, trainer and air journey combination. Largest of the, £11 per 1 week, went on air journey, that is rare but costly. The ordinary domestic spends less than rather than £5 a 1 week on railing fares and time of year tickets. The might surprise party human beings residing in London and the southward east, wherever the technique of commuting is the rule, in lot of the nation it is a rare. Social cash for transportation is not allocated alike through the nation. If you see at the common sum, or how lot is consumable per man, invest in London far outstrips some components of the nation. The is lightly complex by the reality how figures on conducting per chief are intended, relying on how lot human beings dwell in an region, not by how lot human beings use the transportation services. In London, it may see love more than is consumable per man rather than the fact, since the big passenger people who journey in by railing of external the equity doesn't get turned on in the calculating. The figures ensure a picture of a solitary year, so they can as well be deserted off by a little quantity of big projects such as Cross Piece or HS2. But however, social conducting on transportation in London and the southward east is lot high rather than in some places. Scotland is cosily in following location, that makes feeling since it is far greater rather than Wales, Northern Ireland or any British area, and more than rarely inhabited. Largest sum division for transportation statistic just lid England, Wales and Scotland. Though the extensive most of range passing in the UK is by way, more than cash is consumable on railing rather than on domestic and regional roads put along. If you see at how lot is consumable for every kilometre passing, social conducting on railing is 5 to 6 times high rather than conducting on domestic roads. On to Gender Witherington, CEO of campaigning team Transportation Look. Supporting the railway is by environment more than costly, down there is a lot more than infrastructure facilities related in railing, and though they get up less than earth, they include to be lot straighter and flattery rather than roads, and so frequently engage costly earthworks, bridges and tunnels. And governments above the history 10 years or so include desired to restrain individual automobile in favor of railing in procedure to cut carbon sequestration emissions. On to Professor Anthony Fowkes at the College of Leeds Institution for Transportation Teaching. Yet, these conducting figures are a total sum. Importance they don't involve any cash upcoming behind to the by the government via card prices or tolls. The most of households in England own at low one car these days, although on 1 in 5 households don't. As thou perhaps wait, he's the poorest in community who are low potential to own a vehicle. If you see at the minimum revenue mount, the ratio of households that don't own a car rises to 44%. The ratio of households out of a car bring down sharply of the medium of the 20th age, but has been quite steady for the recent pair of many decades. Though the common ratio of human beings possession cars has remained quite continuous in latter year, the hides a considerable changing how has undertaken location amongst such who own cars, says Professor Heidecker. Older female are far more than potential to driving these days. Down there was a public change in the 1970s following that youthful female were far more than potential to get up drive. Yet, the ratio of youthful human beings common who driving is declining, and an increasing ratio of youthful human beings dwell in big cities, particularly London, wherever cars are less than significant. Meantime, the ratio of households possessing two or more than cars has rising significantly. In 1981, 15% of households did. By 2016, a tertiary had at low 2 vehicles at household. A pair of many decades back, the extensive most of vehicles on Britain's roads ran on gasoline. The began to changing of the millennium. Labour Chancellor Gordon 10 entered a reduced car tax for diesel engine cars in 2001 as they were mined to be more than economic and less than detrimental in regulation of carbon sequestration dioxide emissions. Now the full quantity of diesel engine vehicles on the roads is not far off the quantity fleeing on gasoline. Such given by option embers, love electrical cars and hybrids, do up a diminutive ratio. How sense of price, band and customer perceptual, says Professor David Bailey of Aston College. Yet, things are change quickly. Down there has been growing anxiety how diesel engine cars radiate hazardous levels of N dioxide, that is mined to promote to thousands of untimely deaths in the UK. Diesel engine turnover include fall significantly above the history year. Vehicles fleeing on option embers shape a little ratio of new turnover, but the drawing is growing quickly. How tendency is set to go on, says Professor Bailey. Down there is potential to be a tip spot in the previous to medium 2020s while the electrical car outperforms the domestic burning motor car and we see massive get up. He as well thinks combination vehicles will be main in the upcoming year. One big technology growth could sharply changing the car marketplace in ways how are difficult to forecast. Recent monthly Chancellor Philip Hammond told driverless cars could be on UK roads as previous as 2021. It might go as a surprise party to UK motorists, but gasoline prices in the UK are amongst the cheapest in West Europe. Diesel engine prices, on the some brush, are comparatively high, just Swedes and Italians pay more than approximately the identical sum is consumable on the gas himself in various Europe countries, says Simon Williams, the RAC's gas representative. But countries how pay a lot more than rather than the UK at the pump. Love the Netherlands, Italy and Greece pay considerably more than in taxes. Time the retail dealer profit as well varies a lot through the mainland, he says. Common, gas prices enlarged dramatically among 2009 and 2012, the year they achieved recording highs. They include fall rather a bit with later. The cost at the pump is established by three things: world power prices, taxation and the retail dealer's profit. World power prices are flying and unexpected, an expense for the big fluctuations above the history 10 years. Taxes are set by governments. In the UK, gas responsibility rose dramatically in the 1990s, but at a slower bet with later. It was cut for few years of the previous 2000s and has been iced in cash money regulation with 2011. Information Business Index found more than rather than 20,000 as called traffic hotspots in UK cities, so above double the quantity in Germany and 11 times the quantity in France. Some overloaded UK cities and their lowest hotspots involve, by the government says it is putting £23 billion among 2015 and 2020 to enhance the roads and bring traffic jam. Description: the as same largest invest in a general, as so as giver councils additional equity financing to modernize roads and cut traffic jam.